What if the love of your family was all a lie, turning on you the very minute you picked your own heart? Imagine a Christmas party where one daring move ignites a betrayal so raw, it'll grab your soul. Get to know Sophie Turner, a 32-year-old whose battle for love will have you hooked. This novel is a thrill ride of agony, encouragement, and a revenge so clever, it'll blow your mind. Don't blink, the twist ahead will shock you. In the sleepy suburbs of Boise, Idaho, Sophie Turner, a 32-year-old web developer, longed for a family that was like a big hug, but our house was a cage of rules and comparison. Her mother, Janet Brooks, a 58-year-old school counselor, governed all aspects of Sophie's life, from her childhood play to her high school courses. When Sophie was 8, she pleaded to be in the school art club, sketching stars in her notebook, but Janet coerced her into violin lessons, explaining they were more proper. Sophie practiced until her fingers ached, but with each bad note came Janet's stinging voice. You must try harder. Sophie. Her father, Michael Brooks, a 60-year-old bank clerk, never disputed Janet, nodding along or hiding behind his phone, leaving Sophie alone to contest her mother's rules. Her older sister, Megan Brooks, a 35-year-old accountant, was the star of the family, scoring perfect marks, and Janet's constant adoration. Megan devoured the limelight, smirking when Sophie was stuck on math homework, saying, "It's not that hard." Sophie, with a flip of her hair. At family dinners, Janet would boast of Megan's college honors, while Sophie sat in silence, feeling as though she wasn't there. At 12, Sophie got a B in English, her highest grade ever, and held it out to Janet with a sheepish grin, hoping for an admiring glance. Janet scowled and said, "Megan gets A's, why can't you be like her?" Those words landed like a slap, leaving Sophie believing she'd never be good enough, no matter how hard she worked. Janet's control extended to school, where she was added to the parent board, monitoring Sophie's grades every week, and even faulting her handwriting in essays. Sophie detested the speech club Janet coaxed her into, her stomach churning as she stumbled through speeches, under her mother's frigid gaze. Following a loss of a speech contest, Janet's drive home was peppered with sermons on effort, leaving Sophie gazing out the window, repressing tears. Her friends weren't optional. Janet excluded children she referred to as trouble, such as Sophie's 6th-grade friend who enjoyed comic books, subjecting Sophie to sneaking calls in her bedroom at night. Megan flourished in this world, becoming a member of the Honor Society and basking in compliments at family picnics, where family members inquired about her profession, while disregarding Sophie's tales. Megan would interrupt, laughing. "Sophie's just shy," understanding that it stung deeper than uttered. At 15, Sophie received a school writing award for a poem, her heart pounding as she displayed Janet the certificate, hoping for a smile. Janet looked at it and said, "Megan's essay was printed. Concentrate on something important." Sophie. The rejection destroyed her heart, and Sophie concealed the certificate in her closet, hoping one day she would shine. By high school, Sophie was exhausted, managing Janet's rules, and Megan's jibes, while yearning for a life where her voice was heard. She'd stay up late, scribbling in her diary, dramatizing a future without judgment. That faint hope sustained her like a light in the dark of her family's expectations. When Sophie started at Boise State University, the campus's lively energy felt like a fresh start. She chose web design as her major, loving how she could create websites that told stories through art and code. Her first project, a website for a local cafe, earned praise from her professor, who said, "Sophie, you've got a real talent. Don't let it go." Those words gave her strength, and she joined a design club, spending nights brainstorming with friends whom appreciated her ideas. But Janet's calls persisted, referring to web design as a risky job and encouraging Sophie to study accounting. Like Megan, Michael remained silent as usual, while Megan ridiculed Sophie's cute little websites during family video conferences. Sophie persevered to prove them wrong, but their judgment hung like a lead weight she couldn't shake. One snowy spring afternoon, Sophie's car stalled on a deserted Boise street, and she pulled into a tiny garage, irritated and late to a school project. That's where she met Lucas Reed, a 33-year-old mechanic with a gentle smile, and grease-stained hands. He worked on her car with care, listing the issue in a soothing voice, never speaking to her in terms. They chatted for an hour about songs and small-town aspirations, his warm chuckle lightening her mood more than she had experienced in years. Sophie departed the garage with a repaired car, and Lucas's phone number, her heart humming with something different. She and Lucas began hanging out, initially as friends, meeting for coffee at a campus diner. Before long, it was more weekends spent strolling through Boise parks or listening to live bands downtown. Lucas explained his job, how he enjoyed repairing cars and figuring things out with his hands, a pride so unlike the high-powered ambition Janet and Megan were so concerned about. With Lucas, Sophie didn't have to put on an act. She could discuss a difficult project, or Janet's most recent critique, and he'd listen without criticism. "You're enough, Sophie," he'd say, holding her hand, his words healing years of doubt. For the first time, Sophie felt truly seen, not as someone to fix, but as herself, balancing school. And Lucas wasn't easy, with deadlines, club meetings, and a part-time job at a bookstore to pay her bills. But Lucas's support gave her strength, like a steady anchor in the storm of her family's expectations. Janet and Megan hated Lucas, calling him just a mechanic and comparing him to Megan's boyfriend, a rich banker with a fancy car. At family gatherings, they'd whisper about Lucas's lowly job, ignoring his plan to open his own auto shop, or the way he made Sophie happy. Sophie stood up for him, her voice shaking, but Janet would snap, "You're wasting your life," while Michael looked away, and Megan's smirk grew colder. The tension grew heavier each year, like a storm ready to break, setting the stage for a moment that would change everything. Linda's calls grew harsher, her questions sharper. "Who are you spending time with?" She'd ask, her tone biting. I'd deflect, telling her I was working on school, but she'd prod, suggesting I was wasting my time. Tara would message, asking why I missed family dinners, her messages laden with judgment. "Too busy with your little schemes?" she'd say, her words piercing. I ignored her, pursuing my dreams. I got an internship for the summer at a tiny ad firm in Boise, producing social media content for local stores. The work was thrilling, but each step forward was accompanied by a pullback. Linda wanted me to come home more, to check in. David, when he called, echoed her, saying, "Don't get too far, Mia." Their voices hung around, a constant pull against the life I was creating. Nathan became my anchor. When I was second-guessing myself, he'd remind me why I had chosen web design, why I kept going. One evening, after a long phone call with Linda left me exhausted, Nathan took me out for a drive. We stopped by a lake, the city lights glowing far away. "You don't owe them your dreams," he said, his voice steady. I nodded, feeling the truth sink in. With Nathan, I learned to trust myself, to hold on to the spark I'd found. But deep down, I knew bringing him to my family's world would test everything. Last fall, I brought Nathan home to meet my family. We'd been dating for over a year, and I was prepared to introduce the one person who had ever really made me feel important. We arrived at my parents' home in Boise. My stomach knotted. I had warned Nathan about Linda's high expectations and Tara's biting tongue, but he clamped a reassuring hand around mine and said, "We'll get through it together." His composure calmed me down, but I couldn't help feeling that this dinner would be a fight. We sat to a strained meal, the table weighted with Linda's roast and unwritten rules. Linda began with small talk, her eyes examining Nathan as if he'd fail a test. "So, Nathan, what do you do?" she asked, her voice polite but cold. He replied confidently, telling her about his job as a mechanic, how he enjoyed repairing cars others abandoned. I smiled, proud of his enthusiasm, but Linda's face closed up. "A mechanic," she said, her tone dripping with skepticism. "That's hands-on." David, sitting across the table from us, nodded slightly, his face empty. I tightened my grip on my fork, feeling trouble brewing. Tara, never one to let an opportunity for trouble pass by, leaned forward. "My boyfriend, Ryan Carter, has a tech startup," she told us, her eyes darting to Nathan. He's making deals for millions." Her smirk was obvious, a jab designed to reduce Nathan to nothing. I gave her a look, but she raised an eyebrow, challenging me to do something. Nathan remained calm, shrugging off her jibe with a nod. "Sounds impressive," he said, his voice steady, but the air thickened, the weight of their disapproval settling on us. Linda didn't let up. "Mia, you do web design," she said, cutting at her food. "You need someone ambitious, someone on your level. A mechanic doesn't match that." Her words hurt, brushing Nathan aside like he was nothing. I opened my mouth to protest, but David interceded. "For once, she's right, Mia," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "You've got a big future. Don't settle for less." My face flushed, anger surging within me. Nathan reached for my hand beneath the table, his touch calming me. But I was not remaining silent. "His job doesn't define him," I replied, my voice firm in spite of the burning in my chest. "Nathan's honest, hardworking, and stands up for me in ways you never have." The table fell silent, fork suspended in midair, Linda's eyes scrunched up. "Don't speak to us like that," she barked. "We've given you everything. You owe us better than that." Tara laughed, a stinging, sarcastic sound. "Come on, Mia," she said, her eyes flashing with malice. "You're going out with a grease monkey. Ryan's got a penthouse. What's Nathan got? A toolbox." Her words were venom, and I could see Nathan stiffen. Though he remained calm, I pushed back. "Tara, you don't get to judge him," I said, my voice rising. "You don't even know him." Years of frustration poured out. All the times I'd been compared to her. Tara rolled her eyes. "I know enough," she said. "You're embarrassing yourself." That was it. I stood up, my chair scraping the floor. "Nathan's more family to me than any of you," I said, looking from Tara to Linda to David. "He respects me. You just want to control me." Linda slammed her hand on the table. "Enough," she shouted. "You're throwing your future away for him. Choose." Mia, us or him. Her ultimatum loomed heavy, like a storm threatening to erupt. I glanced at Nathan, his eyes steady, believing in me. I thought of all the years I had struggled to make them happy, shrinking to fit into their mold. "I choose Nathan," I declared, my voice firm. Linda gasped. David shook his head. Tara snickered, muttering, "You read delusional." I took Nathan's hand, and we left, their voices receding behind us. That night, I understood their approval wasn't worth losing myself, but I had no idea how much worse it would become. A few months down the line, the Christmas party at my parents' place was full of relatives, tension thick in the air. I'd been avoiding it for weeks, knowing Linda, David, and Tara would be observing everything I did. Nathan and I had been bold a few days prior, a secret wedding at a tiny Boise courthouse. Just us and a witness, we kept it under wraps, not wanting their disapproval to spoil our moment. But tonight, I chose to reveal the truth, my heart racing as we entered, Nathan's hand firm in mine. I dressed in a plain dress, my new ring concealed beneath a scarf, but I felt as if I were entering a war zone. Dinner began quietly, with aunts and uncles discussing turkey and pie. Linda kept looking at me, her smile strained. David drank his wine. Avoiding my eyes, Tara sat across from us, her eyes shifting between me and Nathan, a smirk on her face. I could feel the burden of their expectations, the same ones I had struggled against my entire life. During the middle of the meal, I rose from my seat, my hands trembling, but my heart resolute. "I have something to say," I declared, my voice ringing above the din. Everyone's eyes were on me. "Nathan and I were married last week," I explained, folding up my scarf to reveal the ring. I glanced at Nathan, who nodded in subdued pride. The room fell silent. Then Linda's face went crimson, her fork clattering to the plate. "Married?" She spat, her voice low but laced with venom. "To him?" David's jaw clenched, his knuckles white around his glass. Before I could say anything, they both stood, their voices rising as one. In our eyes, "You're already dead," Linda spat, her words slicing through the crowd. David repeated her, his voice cold. You've thrown your life away. Mia, relatives gasped, some whispering, others wide-eyed in shock. I felt the breath torn from my lungs, their words a betrayal more biting than anything I'd ever encountered. Tara broke the silence with a cruel laugh, her eyes gleaming with hate. A secret wedding with Nathan? She said, her voice dripping with scorn. What? A quickie at some cheap courthouse? You couldn't even afford a real ceremony. Her words mocked our choice, dismissing the love we'd built. Nathan's hand tightened around mine, but he stayed calm, his silence stronger than her taunts. I looked at her, then at Linda, then David, their faces hard with disgust. Years of their control, their criticism, flashed through my mind. Every minute I'd tried to appease them. Every time I'd been relegated for Tara. This was the last straw. I stood tall, my voice firm despite the hurt, understood. I said, eyes locked on Linda, then David, then Tara. The word dangled in space, plain, but absolute. I took a step towards Nathan, his eyes unflinching, and we moved for the door. Tara yelled after me, voice mocking. Running away already, Mia? Typical. I didn't glance back. Family members murmured, some begging me to remain, but their voices dissipated as we went outside. The December chill slapped my face, but I felt free, as if a chain had broken. In the automobile, Nathan drew me close. You all right? He asked. I nodded, tears pricking in my eyes. But my heart was made up. We're finished with them, I said. That evening I made a decision. I blocked Linda's number, David's and Tara's. I deleted their voicemails, their texts, their control over me. For years, I'd borne their expectations, their criticism, hoping for love that never arrived. Now, with Nathan at my side, I got to pick my own family. Leaving a party wasn't just what walking away was about. It was taking back my life. I didn't know what would happen, but I knew that I'd never let them dictate my life again. After the holiday party, I deleted my family's numbers from my phone, walking away from Linda, David, and Tara felt like shedding an enormous burden I'd been carrying for far too long. Nathan and I didn't hesitate. We discovered a tiny apartment in downtown Boise, a warm room with tall windows and a glimpse of the hustle below. Moving in together marked the beginning of new life, something just between us. We spent weekends unpacking boxes, laughing at mismatched plates and mapping out our future. For the first time, I wasn't glancing over my shoulder, waiting for judgment. My career soared beyond my wildest dreams. I'd been with a marketing company for a year, but now I had been given a starring role on a major campaign for a local tech company. The project was massive, a complete rebrand with billboards, social media ads, and a launch party. I threw myself in, sketching out ideas late at night, presenting dramatic plans to my team. My boss, a hard-bitten woman with a good eye, commended my work. You're on fire, Mia, she said after I presented a new slogan. The words were a balm, so much better than Linda's constant nitpicking. I poured myself into the campaign, working with designers and meeting tight deadlines. Every late night at the office, Nathan was there bringing me coffee or texting me encouragement. His support kept me going, even when stress made me doubt myself. But the shadow of my family lingered. I heard through a cousin that Linda was furious, telling relatives I'd betrayed them by choosing Nathan. Tara spread rumors, saying I'd dropped out of school to play house with a mechanic. Their words came to me, stinging like open sores, but I was not going to let them draw me back. I was creating something actual, something I owned, and no one could take that from me. When the client accepted our pitch, my team clapped, and I felt a surge of pride, like I hadn't felt in years. One afternoon, I stumbled upon my mom's friend, Ellen Reed, at a coffee shop close to my office. She noticed me in line and beckoned me over, her smile warm, but guarded. Mia, it's been a while, she said, her voice gentle. We sat with our beverages, and she inquired how I was. I hesitated, not sure if she'd tell Linda, but her eyes weren't nosy. I told her about ending things after the party. About choosing Nathan. Ellen listened, nodding considered. You did what was right for you, she said. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Her words struck deep, a reminder I wasn't alone in my decision. She told me her own story about battling family pressure, encouraging me to hold firm. You're building something real, she told me, squeezing my hand. I left the cafe feeling lighter, her encouragement a silent anchor. Nathan and I leaned into our life together. He was doing well at the garage, fixing difficult repairs and establishing a reputation for his ability. We'd return home after long days, cook simple meals and discuss everything, our dreams, our fears, the little things that made us laugh. One evening, he surprised me with a playlist of songs from our earliest dates, dragging me into a ridiculous dance in our living room. This is us, he said, whirling me around. I giggled until my sides hurt, feeling a happiness I never felt with my family. We made plans, spoke of having kids someday, and put a down payment on a house. Each step was like a vow to ourselves, a promise to the life we'd built. Work kept me humble. The campaign began with a splash, at an event in downtown where our commercials played on a giant screen. Clients shook my hand, admiring the bold designs and catchy tags. I stood there observing the crowd, knowing I'd created something real without Linda's regulations or Tara's jibes. Nathan was present, cheering louder than anyone, his pride in me evident. You're unstoppable, he whispered, his arm around me. For once, I believed it. The success wasn't all work-related. It was evidence I could succeed on my own terms. Ellen's words lingered with me, a reminder to stand firm. I didn't miss my family's oppressive expectations, but sometimes questioned if they'd ever look at me differently. Nathan and I didn't brood about it. We packed our days with work, love and little pleasures such as coffee errands, late-night films, strolls through Boise's icy streets. Our apartment became a sanctuary, a place where I could be me without apology. I was no longer the girl who crumpled to accommodate their mold. With Nathan at my side, I was creating a life that felt authentic, where I determined my own value. 3 months later at the party, Ellen phoned with astounding news. I was in my office, going over ad layouts, when her name scrolled on my phone. Her voice was somber, not the friendly tone during our cafe conversation. Mia, it's about your family, she explained. I steeled myself, not knowing what to expect. She informed me Tara had been conned by Ryan, the man she'd boasted about relentlessly. He had talked her into putting all her savings, more than $60,000, into a sure-thing business transaction. It was a scam. The project wasn't even, and Ryan vanished, leaving Tara with empty accounts and phony contracts. Ellen's words cut deep. Tara, never so self-assured, always Linda's pet, had crashed hard. She'd believed Ryan's charm, his promises of quick money, only to discover he'd cheated others as well. The news circulated through Boise's close society, whispers of Tara's poor decisions trailing behind her like shadows. She'd been so quick to mock Nathan's job, his integrity, but her successful boyfriend had deceived her. I felt a pang of sympathy, but it passed quickly. Tara's jibes, her smirks about my decisions, still smarted. I thanked Ellen and hung up, my mind whirling with the implications of it all. The consequences did not end there. Ellen told me that Linda and David had gotten involved to rescue her. Tara's debts were enormous. Court fees, unpaid loans, and a lifestyle she could not maintain. To finance it, they sold their home, the one they'd fought years to hold on to, the one Linda boasted about at church fairs. They settled for a tiny rental, on the outskirts of town, away from their ideal suburb home. Their savings dwindled, and David's tiny business lost customers as people shied away, afraid of the family's tarnished name. Boise's social circle, where Linda had thrived, grew chilly. Friends no longer invited them to gatherings, and their names became associated with failure. I sat on my couch that evening, grappling with it all. Nathan heard me recount Ellen's call, his hand on mine. They made their decisions, he said, his voice firm. I nodded, but a part of me questioned how we got to here. Linda and David had always done things for Tara first, paid for her aspirations, and had discarded mine. Now their blind devotion had lost them everything. I didn't rub it in. There was no satisfaction to their fall. But I did feel a clear stillness. Their decision-making, their desire to run my life, had been based on shaky ground. Ellen called again a week later, her voice softer but insistent. "Your parents want to speak to you." "Mia," she said. "They're struggling, and they miss you." She stopped, selecting her words with care. "They're not the same individuals you left." I gazed at my phone, the screen blurring as her words hit home. Linda and David calling out. After all this time, I remembered their rage at the party, their callous words, the years of demands I'd never be able to keep up. A part of me wanted to listen to them, but a stronger section remained steadfast. "I'm not ready, Ellen," I said, my tone even, but firm. "Maybe I never will be." She didn't pressure. "I understand," she told me. "You've created something good. Guard it." Her words mirrored the strength I'd discovered with Nathan, the life we were building. I thanked her and hung up, my decision clear. I didn't unblock their numbers, or reply to the messages Ellen reported they'd sent. Their issues were legitimate, but they weren't for me to solve. I'd spent decades shouldering their expectations, bowing to their rules. Now I was finished. Nathan and I spoke late at night, considering what we'd discovered. Their downfall wasn't my doing, but it originated from their decisions. Favoring Tara, disregarding me, pursuing appearances. Boise's rumors never reached our apartment, where we were constructing our own reality. I concentrated on my work, acquiring new clients for the firm, while Nathan accepted a promotion at the garage. We were moving ahead together, unscathed by their judgment. I no longer needed their approval. I had mine. 5 months since the party. My doorbell clanged loudly. I was in our apartment, studying campaign notes, when the sound jolted me. Nathan looked at me. His brow creased. I opened the door and saw Linda, David, and Tara standing there, their faces exhausted and desperate. "Mia, we need to talk," Linda said, her voice trembling. David nodded, his eyes evading mine, while Tara shifted awkwardly, her usual confidence lost. They begged for forgiveness, their words stumbling over one another. "We're sorry for the party, for judging you, for pushing you away," they said. I listened, my heart pounding, but my determination firm. I breathed deep, looking at all of them. "The dead cannot come back," I said, my voice steady but strong. Their faces dropped, Linda's eyes welling with tears, David's jaw clenched, Tara's mouth opening to protest. I didn't wait for an answer. I shut the door, the click echoing in the quiet. Nathan enveloped me in a hug, and I felt the weight of their entreaties drop. I'd spent years chasing their approval, but that girl was gone. This was my boundary, my final stand. Life with Nathan was my anchor. We'd settled into our Boise apartment, our days filled with love and purpose. I'd been promoted at the marketing firm, now leading multiple campaigns. My latest project, a citywide ad for a nonprofit, won an award, my name praised in industry circles. Nathan's garage was thriving too, his reputation growing among clients who trusted his skill. We celebrated small wins, dinners we prepared together, weekend outings, plans for a future we created. Our joy wasn't boisterous, but authentic, founded on respect and trust. For Linda, David, and Tara, the repercussions remained. Ellen informed me they were still grappling, renting a small apartment on the outskirts of Boise. Their savings depleted from Tara's unsuccessful investment. Their friend base had dwindled, old friends shunning them following the scandal with Ryan. Tara, once the spotlight, was now alone, her charm no match for the rumors she trailed. I didn't want to hurt them, but their decisions brought them here. Their apologies could not undo the years of domination, the disregard for my value. I was taught a tough lesson. Boundaries are the only way to guard your peace. Family isn't an obligation when it's accompanied by disrespect. Breaking ties was hard, but it set me free to live authentically, to decide whom I welcomed. Nathan taught me what family might be. Encouraging, not strangling. I'm a better person now. Not because I pushed them away, but because I chose myself. Wow. Mia's story was a wild ride, from a devastating betrayal to a life constructed on her own terms. If this came at you hard, smash that like button. Subscribe for more epic revenge stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to sever toxic ties to find your freedom? We're reading every story, and we might feature yours in our next video. Keep shining, and we'll catch you in the next one. Your value isn't attached to those who will attempt to control you. Establish boundaries, opt for your own destiny, and let your own happiness be your best revenge.